morning. It is the morning of the 27th of November, 2023, Monday morning, starting off fresh and early. So I'm continuing now where I left off last week. The last time I was here, I guess it was Saturday morning. I'm going to continue attaching the rods to the crankshaft. I just wanted to point out a couple things that I've observed, which are good because it's kind of idiot proof. I was worried that I might have trouble remembering which way to face the caps and whatnot, but it turns out there's really only one correct way to do it because of the you weren't supposed to see that. All right, because of the oil passages and whatnot that are on here, that has to match the part of the crank where you see the mirror part of that oil passage too. So as long as I make sure the right sides are mating up, then it's on the right way. And likewise with the bearings themselves, they only fit in one way because of the notch that's on the end here. So that matches the notch that's on the cap right there. So, and each one, of course, I will lubricate with this ultra slick stuff to provide initial lubrication. Might not be completely necessary, but I'm just being extra safe. So once I get all the bearings reconnected to the cranks, then I'll be able to rotate the whole crankshaft and finish getting out the tiny little strands, a couple that are still there with the rear main seal. So that's what I'll be working on for now. All right, all of the rods have been reattached. They're not torqued down, just kind of snugged up a little bit, just enough so I was able to rotate the crankshaft freely, and I was able to get the remnants, the little threads that were still left from the rear main oil seal are gone now. And I was fortunate in that the main bearing caps only fit one direction because they're wider on one side than the other, so it's impossible to put them on backwards, which is a good thing because I wasn't sure. So now I'm working on putting the main bearing caps back in place, and then I'll torque everything down according to my shop manual sitting over there. All right, at this point in the process, I have all the main bearing caps installed except for the rear main, which I'm working on right now. I've got it set aside here. I pulled off the side seals from here, which were the old cork style. It looks like they're hard as a rock. So I've got new ones here that have specific instructions on how to install after you put the cap hand tight with the bolts back on the engine, back on the crank. So right now I'm just showing the lower half of the rear main seal, how it's supposed to be facing, with the lip right there facing forward. That's the forward part of the engine that way, so it's going to go in the slot just like that. But before I do that, I've got fresh new 10W40 oil here. I'll run the seal through it so it's nice and lubricated with oil, and after all that I should be able to torque the bolts down. Okay, so I have the rear main bearing cap in place now with my new main seal in place. These are just finger tight main bolts according to the instructions for the side seals, which do not get soaked in oil, I assume, because they're not really a true oil seal. They're just kind of regular seals that don't abut against a moving surface, so they don't need to be soaked in oil. What it does say is to squeeze a blob of sealant into the openings here where I'm going to push the side seals in. So I'm going to do that real quick. Let me get this open up. Okay, so now let's see how this does. Squeezing some of that there, squeeze a little more here. Okay, that's coming out pretty fast. Put the cap back on. All right, so now, by the way, this is just a regular gasket sealant. I don't think it really matters that much what kind it is, but now, taking the little side seals here, I'm going to push them in one at a time. Make sure I get them in the right way. The fat end faces outside, the outside walls of the engine, like this, according to the diagram that I'm looking at right there. So, just making sure, yep. So it should go in like this, which fits the contours of the cap anyway. So I'm just kind of pushing it down all the way. Maybe I should have soaked it in some kind of oil. This doesn't move very easily, I'll tell you that right now. Let's see here. Yeah, goes like that. All right. Okay, so I'm going to work those in as best I can. So I'll show it to you when I'm done. All right, what I had to do was actually had to lift the cap back up. I just could not just push those side seals down. They were not going. So I just lifted the cap back up, put them in the side, and then as I'm forcing the cap back down, I used a flat edge to keep these inserted. There's a little bit of excess material that would be trimmed later. The next step, and I'm just gonna put some of my own sealant on the outer edges, the parts that I can see, even though the purpose of the side seals is not to let anything pass this way, so maybe I don't need to do that. But according to the instructions, I am now to drive these little expansion pins in here on the inner edge to force the seal firmly against the side. On both sides, I've got two of these little pins, so that's what I'm going to do next. And then after I've driven the pins in, I'm supposed to trim the excess off. I think I'm going to trim the excess off first to make it easier. All right, I think I'm finally done with the rear main bearing cap. The side seals, the rear main seal, upper and lower half, it's all in there. Feel sorry for the next person that's got to take this cap off, which will be me years down the road. Because when you drive those pins in on the sides there, it really makes things tight. But I guess that's how it seals on the side. Um, Sometimes, you know, when you're hitting a nail and it wants to bend, well, that happened several times on this side, but it didn't bend over completely. So I was able to drive it in all the way, and I smeared some more sealant on top here. So the next steps are to torque down the, oh no, there's something else I just read in the shop manual. This center main bearing has thrust bearings on the side that you have to preload, and there's a procedure for doing that. But first it says to tighten the other main bearing caps first before you do that. Save that one for last. So it doesn't appear to be a particular sequence. So I'm going to get my torque wrench set up, look up the torque in my shop manual, and do that next. All right, in the process of torquing down my main bearing caps right now. I've got the torque wrench specifications are 95 to 105 according to the shop manual. So I set my torque wrench right in the middle at 100. I'm just demonstrating what it sounds like when I hit that magic 100 foot-pounds as I'm pulling on it like this. Listen. Ah, did you hear that snap? That's the magic number, or the magic 100. So I'm going to do that to 4 of the 5 bearing caps, and then I'm going to follow this procedure in the shop manual that talks about centering the center cap properly between the 2 bearings that are on the side. I don't know if I'll be able to illustrate that since I have to use both my hands for that, and I don't have my camera stand with me. Something else I want to mention too is between major projects, I put away all my tools and clean up a little bit. I also wanted to illustrate how the engine now turns. No binding or anything. Everything is smooth. You can see that. That's kind of exciting. Now, of course, I have the spark plugs removed. Otherwise, it wouldn't be quite so easy to turn it. But I just like to do this, go through a couple of complete revolutions to make sure nothing is binding. I'm not hearing any weird noises or anything like that. Everything is smooth. So, looking good. I just finished cleaning the gasket surface there for where the oil pump mounts. But now that I look at the oil pump, I see how dirty it is, especially the pickup screen, which is a critical part of the whole oil system. So what I'm going to do is take this home, put it in my parts washer, and clean that up. Make sure that screen is as clean as it can be, and then I'll bring it back. I keep forgetting to document something I learned, another lesson learned while I was messing with the crankshaft back in the shop. I I realized after I reconnected the rods back to the crank that I was actually able to lift the crankshaft higher than I was before, and that's because the rods were interfering with the crankshaft journal at the other end of the engine, the front of the engine. In fact, I actually scratched one of the journals, one of the rod journals at the front of the engine, but I mean, not much I can do about it now. I just put it back together, but I realized that I went about that whole process with that rear main seal, trying to get it out. I did that all wrong. I should never have disconnected those rods. But hey, I also realized after the fact that those are actually bolts, nut and bolts on those rods, and I probably could have pushed out the bolts that were there, and that might have actually given me enough clearance to actually lift out the crank like I was actually trying to do originally. So just something I'm noting for myself. I'm back at my shed, blissfully barefoot because I have to wear boots when I'm working in this friend's shop of mine, in his shop. But anyway, I'm back home just for a few minutes. I brought the oil pump and especially the pickup. I noticed it looks like it's kind of clogged up with goop and stuff, and I don't want the engine to be starving, so I'm just going to let it soak for a little while here in the cleaner. And I forgot too that I had other stuff sitting here for days now from the front of the engine, in particular the retaining stuff for the timing chain sprockets. That's all in here, so I'll finish cleaning those and dry it and get that back to the shop. And just making progress, slowly but surely. Okay, I'm re-recording this little segment because for some reason it errored out on my phone. So once again, got my oil pump back after I cleaned it in my parts washer at home, cleaned off the mating surfaces right there, made sure I got the screen as clean as I could. No debris or anything left there, no gunk. Use brake parts cleaner too to really get that clean. That mating surface, this gasket, which I had to find myself. When I look at the package, it's a Felpro 72607 gasket. When you look close, it says it's for a Ford V8 351W Windsor, I guess, engine. I'm not sure what the W stands for. But anyway, 1980 to 94, and yet it works just fine for this application. So I'm just documenting that for now. And I've got my drive shaft from the distributor that runs the oil pump. Make sure I get that in there. Moving right along, I have the oil pump torqued down. Whatever the book said, I think it was 25 foot-pounds of torque. Yeah, oil pump to cylinder block 20 to 25, so I went like 23 in between. So I've got that in there. Made sure the shaft is in there, the drive shaft hooked into the distributor, so that's in place. I also poured some oil directly into the strainer to prime the pump so it doesn't run dry for more than a split second or two before oil starts flowing throughout the engine. Got my new oil pan gasket laying in place. I'm not going to use any extra sealer. I just don't see a need for that. To me, those are most useful to hold a gasket in place when you've got to attach it to the oil pan. But since I have a nice area here to work in with an engine stand, it's not going to be hard. So I'm not going to use any of that extra sealer. Like I said, I just don't think it's necessary. So next step is to put the oil pan on. All right, there she sits with the oil pan installed. Nice clean bolts and everything. I noticed that this repaired plug apparently is not perfect because it spins if I keep turning it. Now, it wasn't dripping oil when I had oil in it before, so I'm going to ignore that for now. Just make sure I use 2 wrenches when I want to take the little plug out to drain it. But eventually, that's probably something that's going to have to be permanently fixed. But for now, I am just not going to worry about it. Next are the motor mounts. I bought these on Rock Auto at a very reasonable price. I'm sure they're made in China or something like that, but they should work just fine. They're identical, so it doesn't matter which side I put them on, so I'm going to install those next. All right, in my hand is one of these new Rock Auto motor mounts that I thought was just going to be able to be bolted right on there. Well, not so fast. Not only were the threads different here, I had to get a different set of nuts for those, but I just discovered that these holes are too small for the original mounting bolts that go on the block. So I'm going to have to take this. They don't fit. So I guess when they're made in another country, they don't always meet the correct specifications. So anyway, so I'll have to take those home and drill those out. Hopefully I've got a big enough drill bit to do that with before I can put these on. So I guess the next thing I can try is the exhaust manifolds. I may just flip the engine over at this point. We'll see. All right, a little further along in the project. Oh boy. I reinstalled my exhaust manifolds. Had to figure out which way to face the gaskets, but I figured it out. So those are on, looking good. So the next thing I'm working on, since I can't do the motor mounts right now, is pulling off this crankshaft sprocket. I rented the puller again from Advanced Auto Parts, and it's actually working. It's sliding off like it's supposed to. So I'll have that off in a few minutes. And then hopefully in the next day or two, I'll have the new timing chain sprockets, gear, and all that stuff that I need, and can continue on. So far, so good. I'm back home now. It's the end of the day. I just wanted to wrap things up a little bit. Ironically, I actually had a drill bit in the trunk of my car that is the right size to drill out those motor mounts, so my mounting bolts would have fit. So I could have actually done that while I was still there, but so I'll do that tomorrow. I think I'll have tomorrow to work as well at the shop, so I'm looking forward to that. Also got some more goodies in the mail today. I got everything I needed to finish the front part of the engine now. I have a new um, camshaft sprocket, a new crankshaft sprocket, and a new timing chain. So that'll wrap things up on the front. Plus, Mark II Enterprises sent me the gasket set I need. So that means I'll be able to put all that stuff back on tomorrow. Mark II Enterprises also sent me some power steering hoses. Unfortunately, one of them's not the right one. I don't know where they got that one from. One of them is. So the this one I'll be able to replace with this one. It's got the desurge valve on it and everything. They apparently don't make this one. I still need that one, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that just yet. But the one I'm really disappointed in is this one, because this is the one I need to go in my steering gear. And this is what they sent me. So I'm not sure what happened there, but it's definitely not the right hose. So I'm going to have to get in touch with them and see what's up with that. Anyway, that's it for today. This is a quick postscript, even though I said I was done for the day. I discovered, to my own embarrassment, that I actually already have the high pressure hose that I've been waiting on. I actually already have it. I was thinking that the end of it was wrong, but it turns out there's a coupler on the original setup on the car that all I had to do is remove the coupler, and then the hose that I already had will work. It'll connect to the high pressure line that comes from the power steering pump, and that one that I got from Mark II Enterprises, that's the line. It comes from the one they sent me, and I guess the one that I ordered, not knowing what it was, apparently, was the one that connects to the power steering pump and then connects to the hose that I already had. Didn't realize I already had. So now I can put that on the steering gear box, put the brake master cylinder in, and continue down that path. Anyway, now I'm done for the day. Thanks.